Hey everyone, my name is Miya. Welcome to the channel. Tonight we're diving into some chilling true encounters shared by real people on the r/paranormal subreddit. This is the first episode in a new series I'm trying out, so if you enjoy creepy stories, make sure to hit that like button and drop a comment to let me know. Now turn down the lights and let's get into it. Number 1. The Stranger. The first story comes from Gingernut Ranger. This happened 5 years ago. I'm only ready to talk about it now. Hey there. This experience happened when I was 21, 5 years ago. It's something that has played on my mind since, but I've never talked about it. I went to dinner with a friend from university. Let's call her Amy. We had 1 glass of red wine, each with dinner. I was staying at her house at night, and by the time we got back, I was totally sober. It was 1 glass of wine with dinner anyway. I never felt tipsy. Amy was in her ensuite brushing her teeth, and I was laying in her double bed on my side, facing the bathroom that Amy was in. All of a sudden, I felt a very distinct feeling of a hand with long nails go down my back, from my neck to the bottom. It felt like a real hand. I could feel the long nails of all of the fingers, and it tickled the same way a person's hand would. I spun around in shock and faced the other side of the bedroom. For a split second, I saw a tall, middle-aged man facing me with his eyes boring into mine. It was the most uncomfortable, unnatural thing I've ever felt. He was perfectly aligned with the far wall of the bedroom. I saw him about 5 meters away, so no explanation for the human hand scratching down my back. I was crying and shouted for Amy, even though she was just next door. I told her what happened. I was super emotional at this point, and then she started crying. I asked why, and she told me that she felt like someone had been watching her from the corner of her room for months. She even showed me texts to her boyfriend, where she told him she was struggling to sleep because she felt like she was being watched. A well-known male serial killer, in London at least, that preyed on young men, used to live 2 doors down from Amy's house. I didn't know this until I looked it up after. It's taken me years to process this because of how real it was. I felt the hand scratch me. I saw the man. This stuff is real. Number 2. Out-of-body experience. This story is by the user Max Mindsets. I watched myself die from the corner of the room. This happened last year, but it still messes with my head. I was in the hospital after a routine surgery. Nothing crazy, just getting my gallbladder removed. Everything was supposed to be smooth. I woke up in recovery feeling okay, but about an hour later, I suddenly felt really cold, dizzy, and like my heart was beating out of my chest. I told the nurse something felt wrong, and that's the last thing I remember from inside my body. What I remember next was watching the whole thing happen, like I was standing in the corner of the room. I could see myself lying on the bed, pale as hell, a bunch of nurses rushing in, alarms going off. One of them was doing chest compressions. Another was calling for a crash cart. I remember thinking, holy shit, I'm dying. But I didn't feel panic. I felt weirdly calm, detached. Like it wasn't really me who's down there, just a shell. I could hear them shouting numbers, shouting my name, and even yelling something like, "We're losing him." But I just watched. I even looked down at my arms and realized I didn't have arms. Not physical ones. I was just this floating awareness, kind of being like in a dream, except more vivid than anything I've ever experienced. And then it got even weirder. I felt this pull. Not like someone was grabbing me, but more like gravity started working in a different direction. Like I was about to be sucked upward, somewhere. I don't know where. And right before it happened, I heard this voice in my head. Totally calm. Just say, "Not yet." Next thing I knew, I jolted awake with a mask on my face, gasping like I'd been underwater. My chest hurt like hell from the compressions. Turns out I flatlined for almost 2 minutes. Heart completely stopped. But somehow, I came back. I didn't tell anyone what I saw, not at first. But I'll say this, I was more alive during those 2 minutes that I've ever felt in my whole life. And whatever I was, wherever I was floating, it wasn't nothing. It wasn't a dream. I know what I saw. Number 3. Grandpa. This story is by the user Cafe Dreamer. My grandpa didn't know he was dead. About 10 or so months ago, my grandfather died. It was a sudden death that resulted in a car crash. He never knew what happened. About 2 weeks or so later, I had a dream. He was sitting at the kitchen table, saw me, and asked, "Cafe Dreamer, where am I? What is going on?" I looked at him and said, "You died." He responded with, "Oh, okay." He didn't really seem too surprised by the news. He went on to say that he keeps seeing this white light and that he doesn't know what it is, but it keeps calling to him. I told him that it's a good place where his brother and mother are, that it's peaceful and full of love, that they are waiting for him and would very much like to see him again. But then I told him in a very important way that it was his choice. He didn't have to go and could wait as long as he wanted. He thought about it for a moment and said he would wait for a while. I cried and he started to make himself a comfortable home. Then I woke up. I truly believe I got to communicate with him after he died and that he needed me to tell him that he had died. Number 4. The store owner. This story is about 4 years old, by a user that doesn't exist anymore called Rogue Stardust. Skeptic for years until this morning. I work with one other person closely throughout most work days, and today we get to work early, as we knew we had to get stuff done before the snow hit. I work as a burial vault manufacturer, and we deliver and set up funeral gravesites if the customer wishes. Well, on this morning, I walk to the back and turn on the lights to each section of the shop, and on the very last switch, I turn it on, and I see an older gentleman facing away from me, leaning against the back wall, facing the back of the shop. It startled me, and I turned around to ask my coworker that there's someone in the shop. My coworker kind of laughs as I tell him, and he says, "Oh, so you saw him, did you?" Apparently it's the owner's father, who has strong ties to the workplace and has been dead for 10 years. 3 recorded sightings of him, and mine was the 4th. I'm fairly new there, so this completely caught me off guard. I felt like I was dreaming. I had to sit in a bathroom for 10 minutes to calm down. I literally saw someone back there and then disappear. I've always thought ghosts and spirits were BS, but this has completely turned me sideways. I see life in a whole new way. I can't stop thinking about him though. Those blue overalls and white hair with a cap on, clear as day right there, and it was a ghost. My coworker telling me he saw him too has turned me into a believer because I know I'm not losing my mind. And that wraps up tonight's collection of creepy tales. If you enjoyed the stories, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps me out. Have you ever experienced something paranormal? I want to know. Share your story in the comments. Maybe I'll read them in a future episode. And if you want more of these eerie encounters, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for hanging out in the dark with me. Until next time, stay curious and maybe leave a light on.